language and aging and its relationship to wisdom. And in today's talk, I'm going to meet the goal outlined by Howard by not defining wisdom, and I'm actually going to go above and beyond that goal by not even coming to any conclusions about wisdom, but I am, as he says, laying the foundation for that in the rest of the work to come. So we're addressing this question of language and aging by analyzing language samples from adults between the ages of 30 and 90, and we're analyzing a number of different linguistic parameters, grammatical complexity, discourse parameters, and the content of the samples. But the one that I'm most interested in, and the one that I'm going to be talking about today, is word retrieval. I'm interested in word retrieval because it's shown consistent declines with age in previous research, but also because it exemplifies a kind of paradox in aging, and that is the preservation of knowledge, or what's sometimes called crystallized intelligence, and the decline of access to that knowledge, or what's sometimes called fluid intelligence. This word retrieval exemplifies a certain aspect of that. So what I'm actually presenting today is background data for the narrative analyses that comes from several single word tasks that vary in their task characteristics to tap into aspects of fluid and crystallized intelligence. So the first task is picture naming, and we wanted to look at that because it's probably the most commonly used word retrieval task, but also because it has characteristics of tapping into fluid intelligence. In particular, it's a timed task, and the responses are quite constrained. Only a specific target is accepted as a correct response. So these are the data that we've collected from picture naming tasks in our subjects aged 30 to 90. And we found that naming accuracy is well maintained throughout the age range, but it does tend to slow down with age. And this supports our idea that crystallized intelligence, here exemplified by the word knowledge, is well maintained, but access to that knowledge declines. At least efficient access to that knowledge declines with age. Our second task is a vocabulary task, which requires subjects to define words. And this is a much less constrained task that is presumed to tap into crystallized intelligence. It reflects word knowledge, but the constraints are less in that the task is fairly flexible in how one can respond. There are many different ways to define a word that are considered acceptable, and it's not a time task. And so sure enough, we found that knowledge of vocabulary is well maintained. Here you see the accuracy of definitions is maintained throughout the age range and even increases slightly. Our third task is called verbal fluency, and this is a task that requires subjects to generate as many different exemplars as they can in a given category. And we had two different types of categories: semantic category, which was naming as many animals as you can in 1 minute, and a letter category, which requires naming as many different words as you can that start with a given letter in 1 minute. And in this task, so this task was interesting to us because it has characteristics of both crystallized intelligence or word knowledge and access to that word knowledge. It's more flexible than picture naming in that there are a number of different responses that are acceptable, but it is a time task, so it taps into that processing or access skill. And we found that a decline in age was found for the semantic category in particular. Fewer words were generated by the older subjects in the semantic category, and also in the letter category, although that, as you can see, was not significant. So to sum up, I realize this is cheating a little bit using animation to get another slide out of here, but I'm just summing up here. Word retrieval, as one of our linguistic measures, does become less efficient with age, and that is exemplified in tasks particularly that tap into this fluid intelligence or these cognitive processes that emphasize access to knowledge rather than the knowledge itself. So the next question is, how do these single word tasks compare? How do these word retrieval skills translate to the narrative tasks, retrieving words in narrative. And narrative is interesting because it also has characteristics of requiring fast, efficient access, but also having some flexibility. And then the final question, of course, is how do those declines that we're observing relate to the perception of wisdom? And that's the final aspect of the study that we're carrying out this summer. Thank you.